To comprehend the unfolding tensions between France and Niger Republic, we must delve into the events leading up to this situation. Our earlier information revealed in other videos that follow up with the coup in Niger, the military junta swiftly ordered the French ambassador to leave the country, exacerbating the international crisis triggered by the coup. We also made mention that the military government in Niger sought backup troops from neighboring countries such as Mali and Burkina Faso to defend itself, escalating tensions with other West African nations that had threatened to use force to reinstate Niger's democratically elected president. The French ambassador, Sylvain Itte, received a letter instructing him to depart Niger within 48 hours. The letter accused him of ignoring an invitation for a meeting with the foreign ministry and cited actions by the French government that went against Niger's interests as reasons for his expulsion. In response, France's foreign ministry declared that Niger's coup leaders lacked the authority to demand the ambassador's departure. Niger, once a French colony, had been a partner of France in the fight against armed groups before the recent coup. However, anti-French sentiments had been on the rise in the region due to several coups, with some locals accusing France of interfering in their affairs. After the coup, French President Emmanuel Macron strongly criticized Niger's coup leaders and demanded the release of the deposed president, Mohamed Bazoum. General Abdourahammane Tchiani, the military leader, had signed 2 executive orders authorizing the security forces of Burkina Faso and Mali to intervene in Niger's territory in case of aggression. Niger's mutinous soldiers had been adopting a strategy similar to that of neighboring Mali and Burkina Faso, distancing themselves from their former colonial power amid growing anti-French sentiment. These sentiments were fueled by the awareness of France's exploitation of Niger, both during and after colonialism. As the French officials did not leave, Niger's military junta took further action by suspending their visas and diplomatic immunities, making them liable to Niger's laws. They were no longer considered French officials with permission to stay in Niger. They were effectively blacklisted. Therefore, because they did not comply with the order, Niger's military rulers instructed the police to expel the French ambassador, leading to further deteriorating relations and an escalation of anti-French sentiment. Earlier, France had called for the reinstatement of the ousted president and pledged support for efforts by the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, to overturn the coup. Following the coup in Mali and Burkina Faso, France had redefined its strategy and withdrawn thousands of its soldiers from those neighboring countries. After the military junta in Niger ordered the French ambassador to leave, President Macron reaffirmed that the ambassador would remain in the country and reiterated France's support for President Bazoum. However, Macron appeared to underestimate the determination of the Niger junta, expecting that the military would not make such a bold move. Macron believed he would receive support from the US and the European Union, assuming that Niger would not withstand the pressure. He decided not to recall the French ambassador, potentially using him as leverage to test the junta's response. However, Niger's military showed its strength by sending forces to arrest French officials when the deadline to leave the country expired. One of the significant arrests was that of Stéphane Julien, the counselor for French citizens abroad, who could have deep ties with Niger's former president. France's foreign ministry confirmed the arrest of this French elected official in military-run Niger and demanded his immediate release, tacitly acknowledging the junta's rule in Niger. In a surprising turn of events, President Macron announced that France would terminate its military presence in Niger and recall its ambassador from the country. Niger's junta hailed this as a victory and a step towards sovereignty, emphasizing that imperialist and neo-colonialist forces were no longer welcome on their national territory. This announcement dealt a significant blow to France's African policy, as French troops had withdrawn from neighboring Mali and Burkina Faso in recent years due to coups in those countries. Macron's decision to withdraw came after the coup leaders announced the closure of Niger's airspace to French aircraft, both commercial and military, as they sought to regain control of their skies and territory. The Niger crisis reflects the crumbling of France's influence in Africa, as other global powers, such as Russia and China, express interest while African countries reject French interference. The coup in Niger is part of a broader trend in the region, with Mali and Burkina Faso also experiencing coups and growing resentment toward France. Additionally, Russia's Wagner Group offered support to rebellious Nigerians, raising concerns about a new scramble for Africa. Russian flags appeared at demonstrations outside the French embassy in Niamey, and some called for Vladimir Putin to replace Macron as their main global supporter. Following Macron's announcement of recalling French troops, an internal conflict emerged within a French spy agency. Some members of the agency believed that troops should have been sent to protect President Bazoum in Niamey, but concerns about appearing colonialist held them back. This disagreement raised questions about France's objectives in Africa and its role in interfering in African countries' affairs. In the aftermath of the coup, the safety of Westerners became a concern, leading to the departure of French and other EU citizens from Niger amid anti-French sentiments and protests. France issued a stern warning that any attack on its interests would face immediate retaliation. The crisis in Niger is a reflection of the changing dynamics in former colonial relationships in Africa, particularly in the context of France-Afrique, a neo-colonial nexus characterized by economic, political, security, and cultural ties centered around the French language and values across sub-Saharan Africa. The coup in Niger is part of a broader trend in the region, with Mali and Burkina Faso also experiencing coups and expressing increasing resentment toward France. In conclusion, Macron's decision to recall French troops from Niger signifies the declining influence of France in Africa. The crisis in Niger has exposed the complex relationships between former colonial powers and their former colonies, and it reflects the evolving priorities of African nations. The events in Niger demonstrate that African countries are no longer willing to tolerate interference from former colonizers, and this trend is likely to continue in the future. France's quasi-empire in Africa is crumbling, and the balance of power in the region is shifting. Macron's decision to withdraw troops reflects the changing dynamics in Africa and the need for former colonial powers to adapt to the evolving political landscape on the continent.